You know, niggas gotta get their priorities together. Got their mind on the wrong things, spending their money in the wrong way.
Trapaholics, real trap shit.
Say you need that car with the rims and a trunk, just like Jim. It's more to life. Yeah.
I'm telling you. Talk to him.
Say you need that LV bag with the belt and the hat.
That's all you got though.
It's more to life. Yeah.
Talk to him. Real.
Say you wanna turn up at the club, buy some bottles, impress them girls. It's more to life.
Fucking everybody.
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Saints and Appetizers podcast. And who dat? And this evening we have some main course for you. We're finally getting back around to the Saints' 14-11 victory over the New York Giants on Sunday, December 8th at noon Central Time. So that was an ugly game. It was very painful, and all I can say really after watching that game is I'm so thankful and glad that game did not go into overtime. And even if it would have went into overtime, it felt like they were on pace for losing after they got that touchdown and the 2-point conversion with like 4 minutes left. I thought for sure they were going to win. I thought for sure, now Derek Carr is hurt, Spencer or Jake Hayner, he's going to go 3 and out, and they're going to march right down the field and either get the 3 points, which they should have been able to get, or get a touchdown and win. But thankfully, that game did not go to overtime because it was ugly, it was painful, it was some just despicable football when you're coming down to rules and being a disciplined team. And it's not just the Giants. The Saints looked just as bad. It was a bad off, basically. But before I get too deep into the Saints Giants game, New Orleans Saints, New York Giants 14-11 victory, I want to shout out a subscriber here. Previous podcast here, not too far back, I'm talking about how we're grinding up on 100 subscribers, and we've got a couple more here and there. And Sandra D, I want to shout out Sandra D. You are my 99th subscriber, so I just need just one more person out there. You watching me, or you like me, or you've thought about subscribing, go ahead and do it. You'll be the one that rolls over. And if you got a profile and stuff, I'll definitely notice you or get the notification from you, and I'll shout you out too, just like Sandra D, putting me right there at 100, 199, just about to tip over onto 100. Hopefully none of those other subscribers on there are bots, so I don't lose any subscribers before I get to 100. But yeah, I just want to shout Sandra D out for getting me even closer to that was kind of our goal for at least this season, even though the season's kind of gone off the track. So there really aren't too many other goals for the Saints. But hey, a goal for me would be to get to 100 subscribers plus, and we're getting very close to that now. So thank you, Sandra D. All right, so we talked. Let's get into this Giants game. We've talked a little bit of how it's been kind of bad, and how bad it was, and how painful it was to watch, and really how neither team should have won this game. The only really respectable or fair outcome for this game, with how bad both teams played and looked at times, would have been a draw, honestly, or just the refs to throw in like a white towel because they don't want to force fans to watch this horrible product anymore. But anyways, let's get into some of the stats and some of the player stats and just team stats. So can I get a menu? And so just their stats and numbers are pretty similar. I think a lot of it comes into play where the only reason the Saints won this game is just because of all the penalties for the Giants. But we'll get to that here in just a second. But I mean, first downs, the Saints had 18, the New York Giants had 16. Rushing yards and touchdowns, the Saints had 33 rushes for 29. For 92 yards and a touchdown. So they were trying to run the ball against this supposedly last or second to last rushing defense in the league, or just defensive line in general, and no Dexter Lawrence. And man, they could just not get anything going running the ball against what was supposed to be a bad rushing team. And you have your full offensive line is healthy from weeks 1 and 2, and just man, that was the most frustrating and painful and annoying part of watching this game, is because you had the full healthy offensive line, you had a relatively healthy Alvin Kamara, a healthy Kendra Miller, and you could not get anything going on the ground. And then the Giants, on the other hand, they should have ran the ball more. They could have probably put up 200 yards rushing if they'd actually took some of their time and focused a little bit more on the running game, because the Saints they allowed just 23 carries for 112 yards and a touchdown. Like that, and it seemed like pretty much every time. Who was that running back? Uh, yeah, Tyrone. Yeah, Tyrone Tracy. It seemed like about every time he got a handoff, he was picking up 3, 4, 5 yards, and then obviously Drew Lock is really who tore them up. He took off about 5 times, and had a couple 15, 25-yard games. So they really did. I guess the defense really did a respectable job against the run, because Drew Lock was the leading rusher for the New York Giants. He had 5 carries for 59 yards and a long of 25. But it just felt like, even besides that, it just felt like they could actually have some semblance of a running game that the Saints couldn't seem to get going at all in this game against the Dexter Lawrence-less Giants. So there's one. That's just one of the reasons and ways that the Giants should have won this game, but they didn't go about it that way. They didn't go about to run, because they threw it with Drew Lock coming in as a backup. They threw it 49 times. He was 21 of 49 for 227 yards, zero touchdowns, and the interception off of Demario Davis, where he must have got his new hands. His new hands from Amazon must have came in, because he got an interception, and then I don't know, he did like the fake old man fall down, jump back up. I'm gonna celebrate to the sideline. Wait, no, I haven't been touchdown. I can take this back for a touchdown, but didn't count. Didn't count. He didn't like officially like kneel down after like catching it and then kneeling down, like looking around. It just looked like he thought he'd been touched already, and he was running to the sideline, and then he was like, "Hey, only person close to me is this offensive lineman. I can take this to the house." Man, that would have been really nice if that pick six would have counted, because that would have been the final nail in this coffin, and then we wouldn't have had to have any of the drama at the end of this game. But yeah, that was a little annoying. I've seen more ridiculous turnovers where it gets turned over and you think the play's over. The next thing you know, there's a defender or even an offensive player that stole the ball back, is dancing in the end zone, and it's a touchdown. So that was a little annoying that didn't count, because he didn't like catch it and kneel down. He fell. He like tripped, and old man fell, and then was looking around, and then the way he was holding the ball with like one hand, like the defenders do at the end of turnovers and turnovers on downs and sacks and stuff. They're acting like they're celebrating and running to the sideline or run into the end zone, and that I don't know, that was a little annoying. That would have been nice to have just ended that game there. But no, we had to deal with more of it. We had to go through more of the struggle of watching the New Orleans Saints at New York Giants mid-off, and then sacks. Both teams got 2 sacks. Saints had 2 for 19, with 19 yards lost, and one of those was on like the last drive of the Saints. Jake Hayner just very much just like gave up on a play, thankfully, instead of like throwing it incomplete. If you watch the play, it looks like he's trying to throw it into the ground for an incompletion, but the Saints needed the time there, trying to run out the clock. And then the Saints got 2 sacks on Drew Lock, and man, it felt like they should have had more in this game, because they just had one by Brian Bresee and one by Colin Saunders. It definitely felt like Brian Bresee should have been able to get at least another one, and then it felt like Chase Young, the greatest and the best almost sack uh, edge rusher in the league. I mean, there seemed like there towards the end of that game, there were multiple times where it looked like he had Chase Young had the snap count like synced up to where he was just uh, firing off the edges like ridiculous. Like his entire body was like in the backfield, like the second the ball was snapped. The fact that he wasn't able to get a sack from one of those plays was crazy. There was a couple plays where he literally had like scrambling Drew Lock like around the waist and can't get him down for the sack, and he's able to throw it and throw it for the incompletion. So Chase Young, I think he's helped at times, and he adds pressure to your defensive line, but he is not a finisher. He is an almost sack guy, and it's very frustrating watching him. And the way he was jumping the snap count so well at the end of that game was annoying that he wasn't able to actually get a sack from one of those snap counts that he jumped. All right, so and then just total yards. The Saints only had 292, and the Giants actually had more, 325. They just couldn't get any points out of it. And then let's see, Saints fumbled twice but didn't lose one. The Giants didn't fumble, and then they both threw an interception. Uh, the Saints one from Derek Carr was on. It was like on third down, third and long, anyways, and it was basically like a punt, so it didn't matter that much. But Drew Lock's was a big time interception that easily could have cost them the game right there, and commutatively it did. And then penalties, the Saints were just 6 for 40, which is that's pretty good considering like what their average. Their average is probably closer to around like 8 for like 60. So that's not too bad. But the Giants, man, were awful on penalties. They were 12 for 120. They were 12 for 112 yards in penalty yards, and two of those penalties took touchdowns off the board, or one took a touchdown off the board, and one took 3 points off the board. So they took two of those 12 penalties took 10 points off the board, which would have been more than enough to beat the Saints. So the first one was where they I can't remember. I think this happened before where yeah, I think it was in the towards the end of the first round, uh, or towards the end of the first half. The Giants were kicking like a medium field goal, like one from like 40 something yards, and yeah, like 45, 46 yard field goal, and they made it. But then they show a replay of one of the field goal protectors like during the play, like picking Peyton Turner up and like body slamming him like during the play. Honestly, I thought when they were calling the play and trying to sort out what the call was, I thought it was just like, oh, the penalties going to be fine. I mean, the field goal's good. They're just going to add 15 on to the kickoff, and then they back them up 15 yards and make it to where it's a little bit out of their kicker's range. And so that was wild. That would I'm trying to see what that would have. Yeah, that would have made the game going into halftime 7-6, which that if the game would have just continued basically how it ended up playing out, hell, then the game would have went to overtime with those 3 points. But then we're talking the touchdown that was taken off the board. That was on a play on a punt return uh, where Matthew Hayball he tried to do his best JT Gray impression for being like a special teams gunner, and he filled in a gap that he shouldn't have had, and didn't stay back as like your personal protector on punts there, and and then there was which that led to the returner being able to get outside and get the touchdown because he was Hayball wasn't playing the last man of defense there, but luckily it got called back due to a hold. I honestly thought when that happened and they went up, they went up what that would have been going up 10-7 at that point. I thought the game was over. I thought for sure the Giants were going to win, but then you see Darren Rizzi like screaming and yelling and having to be held back by Alvin Kamara on the sidelines due to Matthew Hayball having a bad punt and then playing that defending that punt badly by not staying back. I honestly like seeing a little bit of that. I guess there's levels to it, but the fact that we didn't get to see like any of that during Dennis Allen's time here, it's just nice to see some like life and energy and some fire from your coaches. But you don't want to do it too much, and you also don't want to do it to one of your highest or marquee or your quarterback. It's okay doing it to a rookie punter who, if he continues to have some of the bad games that he's had, won't be on the Saints or an NFL team before too long. But yeah, that just shows you the bad some of the bad penalties and just how the tank off and the tankathon that we were getting from the Giants. It was almost hard to believe that the Giants weren't tanking. They weren't hiding it very well. And then third down conversions, that's all pretty similar. The Saints were 5 of 15, and the Giants were 5 of 19. And then the Saints had one fourth down conversion attempt where they tried to do a fake, like direct snap to Jamal Williams on a punt where he needed to pick up like 3 or 4 yards. I just don't like any play really that's like a gimme, like a have to have it type of play. I really don't like any play like that involving Jamal Williams because he's just showed me nothing. And that's exactly what he did in this play. He just ends up coming up like inches short of being able to pick up the first down. Like you couldn't stay on your feet for just literally like a millisecond longer to pick up that first down. So I'm out on Jamal Williams, especially doing any importance, having any like real important or drastic play. I would prefer him not being involved in it. And then the Giants were 2 of 4 on fourth downs, but didn't lead to a victory. Didn't help them uh, end up leading to victory, even though they converted one of those. One of those was a big fourth down conversion. It was what, like a 4th and 10 at the end of the game, which ended up getting them in Saints territory and in field goal range. Those are some big fourth down conversions by the New York Giants. And then time of possession wasn't much difference. Really, the Saints were 38 minutes and 49 seconds, and the Giants were 28 seconds or 28 minutes and 11 seconds. So it was all pretty similar. So there's your like team stats and stuff. Just want to talk about we mentioned it a little bit because we were talking about how one of the sacks was taken by one of the sacks was taken by Derek Carr, and then the other one was taken by Jake Haener. Well, I mean, the reason that happened was I don't think we would have had as much of a dramatic ending to this game if Jake Haener didn't have to come in because Derek Carr got hurt trying to pick up a first down on the Saints, trying to gain a time killing drive that they're going on, and he's should just end up being left in like third and 3, 3rd and 2, but he does his best jump man impression, his Josh Allen impersonation, his Taysom Hill impersonation to at least get it 2 more yards closer to make it just a 3rd and 1. But he ends up pulling his best Deontay Murray impression while trying to come down and brace his fall with his entire arm, his entire left arm, and ends up hurting himself and getting knocked out of this game because of that. And that leads to Jake Haener not being able to pick up a 3rd and 1, which would have been all they really needed to get the clock rolling, and then just basically just giving the ball back to the Giants, pretty much serving it on a silver platter for the Giants to win this game because Jake Haener wasn't ever going to be able to pick up a first down or hardly even complete a pass. And if this game went to overtime, no way Jake Hayner and the Saints would have been able to get into even just field goal range without a turnover or crazy play. So that's why I definitely felt if the punt didn't get the field goal didn't get blocked, like the Saints were going to lose. Like Derek Carr, if nothing, you might not like him all that much, but he put the Saints ahead enough to where they were able to win this game. Without him, if it would have been Spencer Rattler or Jake Hayner starting this entire game, they would have got blown out. So, want to bag on Derek Carr for being a little too risky. It's kind of going outside of himself by doing his jump man impression, his Josh Allen impression. But at the same time, you got to know how, even if you're going to run plays like that, like Taysom Hill, you got to be able to know how to fall and take the hit, and just unnecessary to be jumping up in the air like that. But I understand it. It's one side of me wants to bag on him and joke about it and make fun of him, but the other side is like, I understand why he was doing it. He was wanting to pick up that first down. He was wanting to end this game with the Saints with the ball in the Saints possession, but ended up getting a little too wild and watching a little bit too much Taysom Hill. He may have been feeling a little bit too good, and that definitely knocked Carr down a peg. But still, I don't think even with knowing that he's got like a broken wrist or a broken hand or something, he hasn't been completely ruled out of this game against the Commanders, the Washington Commanders, because it's his non-throwing hand, and we all know how tough Derek Carr is. So even if he does miss this game and maybe misses the game against Green Bay because it's cold and all that, I would be very surprised if Derek Carr misses his revenge game against the Raiders in 3 weeks. So, yeah, kind of Derek Carr maybe missing the next two games pretty much kind of just starts shoveling dirt kind of on the Saints 2024, 2025 season. It's pretty much over if you don't win at least pretty much just win out. And I don't see you winning out or winning those games against Washington and Green Bay with Spencer Rattler and Jake Hayner, your quarterback. But even regardless of that, regardless of how even Derek Carr's feeling, I think he's coming back to play in that revenge game, that comeback game against a get back game against the Raiders, and hopefully. It's almost a part of me that hopefully he doesn't come back for that game, because it's almost what if the Raiders actually somehow win and then Derek Carr is like the only quarterback or only player of all time to have like lost to all 32 teams in the league. So if he doesn't play, you don't have to worry about it at all. So that's a bit of the Derek Carr's news. I still wouldn't be surprised if in a week or week or two, he ends up just having that thing wrapped up or is just wearing a glove on his left hand. All right. Now then, on to MVPs here for I'll go over the pregame MVP, offensive MVP, and then we'll go over post-game offense and defense and special teams. Even though there's not just from your straight specialist, there's not a lot to look at for your how good your kicker or how good your kicker or how good your punter or even your returners did. But there's still someone that made it maybe for defense and special teams MVP. But my pregame MVP for this one, and I was doing it a little scared. I was afraid that maybe I'll pick Kendra Miller, and I've picked him the last couple times, and I just see flashes from Kendra Miller. It's just so frustrating that he can't stay healthy. So picking him and knowing some of my bad luck for picking MVPs in the past and him even being one, I was a little scared, but I want to see Kendra Miller now that there's no Taysom Hill. There's really no interest in this team anymore. And we got to see that from Kendra Miller. Even though the Saints didn't rush for a lot of yards in this game, I felt like Kendra Miller picked up basically the slack that Taysom Hill probably kind of left behind. It's just 10 yards for 32, 10 carries for 32 yards and a touchdown, a long of 9, and then he was targeted once, and then he even had I think he even had a kickoff returned for 40 for third for yeah, he had a 31-yard long kickoff return too. So I was thinking like 80 yard 80 like 80 yards from scrimmage and a touchdown or something like that. Well, he ended up just having uh 60 63 all-purpose yards and a touchdown, but the few carries that he had were super impressive. He had 2 carries where he picked up some first downs where it looked like he was going to be stopped by two or three times, and he broke 2 or 3 tackles on 2 of these runs where he picked up a first down, and then on his touchdown, which was an amazing play, I think the Saints were like at the 7-yard line, and he's handed off the ball, and it looks like he's going to be stopped at the 5, and then he basically carries the entire New York Giants defense into the end zone, all Deuce McAllister style, and he being carried in the end zone with the assistance of Eric McCoy, Lucas Patrick, and Cesar Ruiz. So that was awesome. That was awesome. I feel if Kendra Miller can just stay healthy, I know he doesn't do all the same things and everything that Taysom Hill does, but he can at least pick up the slack in the running game by having him healthy. So I would say that Kendra Miller was the MVP of this game just off that impressive 5-yard touchdown run that he had where he carried the entire Giants defense into the end zone. And then we kind of went over Derek Carr's numbers. He had okay numbers, but he still threw the interception and got sacked and ended up hurting himself in the game. But then some other decent performances on offense. Marquez Valdez-Scantling didn't have a touchdown for 30 plus yards in this game, but he still had 4 catches for 51 yards, long of 22, and that came off of 7 targets. So Derek Carr was definitely looking for Marquez Valdez-Scantling. So that's good to see that Marquez Valdez-Scantling was kind of felt come more comfortable in his role, and even the quarterbacks are more comfortable in his role and looking at him on like short and intermediate throws, not just long ball every time. So that's good to see. He probably knows the playbook a little bit better. And then there's just Juwan Johnson. He had 5 targets for 4 catches for 50 yards and a touchdown and a long of 30. So I mean, Juwan Johnson, pretty even equal debate, between either him or Kendra Miller being the MVP. But I'm going with Kendra Miller because he got things started off in the first quarter, and we were seeing him breaking like multiple tackles and hop stepping and cutting. It was impressive. Even though that her average isn't great, but I mean the offensive line wasn't blocking against a bad defensive line. They weren't blocking well. So it shows you if a defense tries hard enough, they can stop the Saints running offense if they put enough effort into it. And then on defense, I think I'm going with Brian Bresee, and I think he may pick up 2 MVPs from this game. So he had 2 pass deflections, a sack, one solo tackle, a tackle for loss, and two quarterback hits. So that's just all on defense. So I guess I can't add his blocked field goal to this, but I would give it to Brian Bresee anyways because he was getting good pressure constantly in this game. So was Chase Young, but Chase Young didn't only had like a pass deflection and 1 tackle, but he had three quarterback hits. And then you have Hugo Amade had 8 tackles, 6 solo, 2 assists, and two pass deflections. And then you had Demario Davis, who had an interception, 2 pass deflections, at 8 total tackles, just like Hugo Amade, 5 solo, 3 assists, and 1 quarterback kick. So you could probably go between pick between Demario Davis or Brian Bresee. Brian Bresee, because both of them were good. I just want to go with Brian Bresee because I want to go with Brian Bresee again on special teams on my MVP, my special teams MVP, because it was looking pretty grim on if there was going to even be a special teams MVP from this game. Because I mean, uh, Blake Groupie with the way the Giants, I don't know. I don't know how the Giants didn't score more points like earlier in this game because they started what 5 of 6 or 6 of 7 of their first drives like at their own 40-yard line or better, and the one that it wasn't was still like at their own 30-yard line, and they didn't come away with like any points during all those possessions where they're literally almost in Saints territory or were just barely in Saints territory. Matthew Hayball was doing a bad job on punts being like right down the middle or being short or not playing personal protector like last bit of defense on some of those punt returns. One that should have been the game winner, should have won the game basically for the Giants, but got called back to due to a hold. And then you had the same thing with Blake Groupie. Missed 2 long field goals, missed one from what 54 yards, and then got a 60-yarder blocked. So you got no field goals made by Blake Groupie, just the 2 extra points, which were very important. If they didn't make those, that might not have been enough. That could have been enough to lose the game. And then just talking returners a little bit, Kendra Miller had one kickoff return for 31 yards, and Jamal Williams had one for 16, where he literally like dropped the ball and then comes out and is like tackled at the 16. I'm just over Jamal Williams. He was cute at first with all the anime and Pokemon stuff, but he's just not a good player anymore. And then the Saints didn't have any punt returns or weren't hardly uh, ever to their what is it James Gilligan. He did a good job of keeping the Saints pinned back and pinned to the sideline to where they couldn't return any of their punts for anything. Definitely had a much better day than what Matthew Hayball did. So those are the MVPs. We're thinking Kendra Miller, offensive MVP, defensive MVP, Brian Bresee, and then even special teams MVP, Brian Bresee, for blocking the game tying field goal, the overtime sending field goal. So that was nice to see. And then hot takes. This was just going off of thinking like it's going to be a tankathon, a tank off, and we were going to see basically the Giants just kind of giving a lackluster performance and just kind of giving up on 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 Brian Dayball, and I think we kind of saw that. Another thing, just out of ridiculous stats that have like come out of this game, is heck, uh, Drew Lock. He started the game 0 of 8 on his passes. So you had that ridiculousness. You had the 12 penalties for 112 yards as just giving up on your team. You had the drives early on that you had the 6 or 5 drives start like at midfield and weren't able to get any points out of it. So yeah, I think we definitely saw the worst off the tankathon of this, and just not great effort for Brian from the New York Giants for Brian Dayball. The only effort that I really saw from them was a couple scrambles from Drew Lock and just their defensive line being committed in stopping the run. But that was about it. The undisciplined with all the penalties and not being able to score once, and your quarterback not being able to complete passes or receivers being able to catch passes for him to be able to score more points earlier on in this game. So I would say my hot take hit, even though it was kind of an odd one. But yeah, we saw a lot of bad and not very much good in this game, and that comes from either one of these teams. And then pick and scores. I thought even with losing Taysom Hill, I felt like you're getting your whole healthy offensive line back, and then besides everyone that's just on IR, the team's pretty much the same as it was with before Taysom Hill got hurt. And I felt like if you're getting a healthy Kendra Miller back, maybe he can fill in for that. So maybe you'll get kind of a similar game to what you got against the Browns, what, 3, 4 weeks ago when the Saints were in a pretty kind of a dogfight with them in the first half. Actually, the first 3 quarters, it was tied 14-14, and then the Saints kind of separated themselves and ended up blowing them out 35-14. Well, I thought that would kind of happen in this game, and it was kind of set up for it a little bit. The Saints had some really good drives. They had what the longest drive of the season that was the first drive where Kendra Miller capped it off with an 8-yard touchdown run. That was like a 98-yard drive, the longest drive that they've had since like 2018. So it's like I thought they looked good then, and then even in the third, towards the end of the third, when they finally scored another touchdown, that was like a 6, 7, maybe that was like a 9-play drive that went for a touchdown, and it just felt like they had stuff going. It felt like they were about to get something going, and then there's just nothing going after that. So I don't know. The New York Giants definitely had their numbers, and I think that threw the Saints off. They weren't expecting to not being able to run against one of the worst run defenses in the league. So I think that the Saints game plan up quite a bit as well. And I understand that teams leading into this game, a lot of their focus and practice and just the vision of defenders coming in this game, they don't. It's not as keyed in on a player like Taysom Hill because he's hurt. So that could have been it. We're just kind of seeing the Taysom Hillless Saints again, but there's just the difference is it's not with Jake Hayner or Spencer Rattler, even though it didn't look much better. But hey, we'll get to see it again. It sounds like we're going to get to see it again against Washington. So my pick for the Saints, I picked the Saints to win, so that was correct. But they didn't come close to scoring 31 points, and the Giants should have been able to score at least 17. The Giants should have been able to score. Well, let's see. I'm trying to think. So 6, 7. Yeah, the Giants should have been able to score 20 should have scored like 24 points in this game. They should have made 2 more field goals. One would have been if Peyton Turner didn't get body slammed during the play, taking 3 points off the board, and then obviously the three that got blocked by Brian Bresee at the game, and then the kickoff return where I think that was more of a bad play on Hayball than it was an egregious hold or anything. Even though the hold did account for it, and I was okay with it being called. But yeah, so Saints were nowhere or at any time looked like they were a team that could score 31 points. But the Giants should have had at least 17 points in this game. It was just the 12 penalties for 112 yards of loss and just erasing 10 points from the board is what you got from there. And that goes more to the tankathon, the mid off, the giving up on your head coach and Ozempic Wegovy Brian Dayball. So I picked 31-17, but we ended up just getting 14-11. But still got the pick right and was actually surprisingly more correct than I would have thought I was going to be on MVPs and hot. But anyways, that's the game. That was the New Orleans Saints versus the New York Giants 14-11 win on December 8th, 2024. That was the past Sunday, and that was at 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 Central. And now we'll be moving on. The Saints can still somehow win the NFC South. They would just have to win out basically, and then they'd have to have the Falcons lose 2 more, and then the Tampa Bay Buccaneers would have to lose 2 more, and one of them being to the Saints at the end of the year. So I mean, it's still not impossible, but I think the Saints are probably going to get a season kind of reality check with these next two opponents that they're going to be playing. Now that they're not playing some of the worst teams in the league, like the Giants and the and the Panthers. So, and even the Falcons when they played them, they're playing some more respectable and should be playoff teams in the Washington Commanders and the Green Bay Packers, which that should be a tough game, seeing how it's going to be. It's going to be in Lambeau, so that alone would probably make that ugly for a not so great dome team. But anyways, I think that's about all I have for you. So who dat? And can I get a check, please?